Hey folks, greetings. Now, I'm a little bit late to the party on this topic, but I want to talk about it because it's quite interesting, and I've seen a lot of people talk on this subject, and I think they're missing quite a few key areas that I want to talk about. So I want to talk about this proposed smoking ban from the government. Now, I guess there's different severities of how this could play out, whether they just want to ban smoking in beer gardens and restaurant gardens, or whether they just want a complete blanket ban on smoking in public places. I'm also aware of the timing of this release as well. I understand how governments and media works. They release this because they probably want us talking about smoking bans rather than the upcoming austerity budget which is coming our way. But anyway, that's a different topic for another day. But yeah, I want to talk about this. I guess there's kind of like four key areas that I want to talk about around this subject, and the first one being basically health to other people, health to people that don't smoke. I mean, that was the original driving force for the original smoking ban, wasn't it, back in the day? Because, obviously, the smoking ban in public places, indoors, was a good thing. At the time, you still had the same old arguments that we're having today with this smoking ban, aren't we? Oh, it's an infringement of our civil liberties. But obviously, for people that don't smoke, it wasn't fair for them to inhale passive smoke, and they will get sick and they can get cancer. The research, the science has proved that passive smoking can give you cancer. So obviously that was the right thing to do, and we all know that now. And you remember when you used to go down the pub and just absolutely reek of cigarettes when you came back? It was awful. So that was obviously a good thing to do. Now, does that have the same effect outdoors? I can't find any research that says that passive smoking outdoors in the fresh air will give you the same health problems. And I guess sort of, just a general understanding on the subject will tell you that no, not really. Outdoors, you're not going to be having any severe health effects from passive smoking outdoors in the fresh air. So I don't think there's an argument there. And the other argument, number two argument, will basically be, does the government have a right? Does the government have a right to say to Larry, who's just done a hard day's work, that he can't enjoy a cigarette in a beer garden? Does the government have the right to say that? It's interesting. I've actually visited a city that have these laws in place. So I was in the Philippines a couple of months back, and they've introduced this into a couple of their cities. We visited Baguio, which has a complete blanket ban on cigarette smoking and vaping in public spaces. You can't vape or smoke on the street, in pub gardens, anywhere in public spaces. You can't smoke or vape. Now, the reason they've introduced that is because of the strain on their health service. Now, the health service in the Philippines is not great. It's similar to the American style private system, but if you're poor, the first thing they ask when you go to the hospital is they want an upfront charge, and if you haven't got that, you have to go to the general hospital, and you could be waiting hours and hours and hours and hours on end for treatment. So they want to try and help the burden on their health service, and they've introduced this into cities in the Philippines, and it works. By default, it works. If you ban people from being able to smoke in public spaces, people won't smoke. If you're working in the city, are you going to go for a cigarette? You probably have to drive half a mile out of town. I don't know. So people are not smoking, and I guess it's working. But the question is, do the government have the right to inflict this on people? And I'm all for preemptive measures when it comes to helping the health service. I'm not one of these people that thinks that we should just throw money at the NHS. There's so many different ways to help the burden on the NHS, and preemptive policies is one of them. I'm all in favour of more parks and recreation things for kids, and having access to gyms, and any sort of tax breaks that we can give for healthy lifestyles. I'd love to see healthy food much more affordable than unhealthy food. All these things that we can do to help obesity and stuff like that on the NHS. I'm all for preemptive measures, but where I go on banning things is I'm not really in favour. Well, my key thing when we come to actually banning things is whether it affects other people or affects yourself. That's where the line is for me. you know, I've always been a massive advocate for changing our drug laws. You know, just blanket banning of drugs. The drug war that we've had for the last 30, 40 years doesn't work. We still have record high drug users. We have gangs fighting each other, knifing each other in the streets over territory. It doesn't work. And when you're talking about a substance that you take that only affects yourself, you're the only person it's affecting by taking this drug. I don't think you should ban it. And in a way, the way that the drug laws are at the moment, it's harming other people by having the substance banned, because it's harming other people. When you partake in taking drugs, you're also partaking in the drug violence and the harm of trafficking and all these other things that come with it. If it's legal, you're only harming yourself. And that's where I am with banning things. So do I want to ban Larry from having a cigarette in a pub garden? No. It is hard, this one, because I do see decent arguments on both sides of this. I do. But the banning thing, I just, you know, if you're only harming yourself, I don't see the right of banning it. You know, I have the same argument when you talk about gun laws in the US. You know, I've been to the US a couple of times. I've had these conversations with American citizens on their gun laws. They're very passionate about this. And my argument is always, yeah, you know, they like to say these things about they have to have guns to protect so they can form a militia and fight a tyrannical government if it comes along and stuff like this. And they throw out all these good arguments. But you do also, if you believe in the gun laws in America, you have to come to the conclusion that you're willing to spare hundreds of children's lives every year in school shootings. That is the price that you have to pay. You can throw out all these rights you want. You can say that it's our right to bear arms and the Fifth Amendment or whatever it is, but you have to admit that you're willing for hundreds of children to die every single year in mass shootings to have that right. And that's where it affects other people, and that's where I believe guns should be banned. Guns should be banned because it affects other people. Cigarettes in open spaces doesn't affect other people. And like I say, I'm all for preemptive measures to try and reduce, because that's the other argument, isn't it? Should the government be reducing the amount of smokers to help burden the NHS? Yes, they should. I don't think this is the best way of doing it. I think that just encouraging vaping is a much better measure for me. I'm not too keen on the steady tobacco banning that they're doing, but I'm all in favour of banning disposable vapes, because you have an alternative. When vaping originally came out, it was to help people stop smoking, and that's why vaping came out, and it's an incredible tool at doing that. It stopped me from smoking. I went on to vaping. You can control the amount of nicotine that you have when you're vaping. You know, these disposable vapes are, come on, let's get real, they're aimed at kids. The flavours that you get, the fact that they're £4 to buy, they're incredibly strong. You know, this is the difference. When you get the refillable vapes, you can control the nicotine. You can't in these disposable ones. You buy them, they're incredibly strong. And we've heard all the horror stories from kids in school that are getting nicotine withdrawals and stuff. You know, back when I was oh, Jesus Christ, I'm turning into that guy, aren't I? Back when I was a kid. Oh God. But back when I was a kid, yeah, people, you know, kids smoked cigarettes and stuff like that, but no one was really addicted to cigarettes. You know, it was too much to cost. You know, when you're an adult, you can afford a 20 a day cigarette habit. You can't as a kid. So you'd have the odd one now and again, or you'd share one in the park between you. But you know, these disposable vapes, they're like £4 each. Kids are just getting addicted. They're so strong, so more addictive than actual cigarettes, because you just don't stop puffing away. Anyway, I'm going on a bit of a tangent about vaping here. But yeah, I'm all for governments to try and reduce the amount of smokers and doing things. I'm all for the original ban. I'm for the banning of advertising. I'm for the banning of, well, not the banning, the implementation of warning labels on cigarettes. All these things have helped reduce the amount of smokers, which they have. You know, far less people smoke now than what they used to, because of these small little implementations. Everyone smoked before because it was just normal to smoke, wasn't it? Everyone smoked. It was normal to smoke. There was no labels. Advertising was everywhere. It seemed normal. But all these measures that were introduced has slowly stopped the amount of people from smoking. but a blanket ban on smoking in public, I'm not for. The other argument, I'm going to finish on this one because this is an interesting one, isn't it? The other argument that you get from smokers is that, you know, they pay for their own NHS treatment. This is the big argument, isn't it? All the horrendous amount of tax that they have to pay for cigarettes, they end up paying for their own treatment. You know, is that necessarily true? I mean, like, tax is extortionate now, and you guys are at home. Preferably, you've probably got some sort of access to internet right now if you've got a phone on your hand. I'm driving, I haven't got the stats to me, but I think it's roundabout near on half the amount that you pay for cigarettes now is just tax. A packet of Marlboros will set you back about 14 quid now, so it's like 7 quid of that is tax. So if you're like a packet a day smoker, £7 a day, what's that, about 50 quid a week, 200 a month, over a year, maths, 2.5 grand, something in that region, 2.5 grand. If you've been smoking for 20 years, 50 grand, about 50 grand you've spent on cigarette tax if you've been smoking for 20 years and you develop cancer, throat cancer, lung cancer. 50 grand. Now 50 grand is a lot of money. You know, it's not bearing in mind your own NHS contributions or anything like that as well, but it's a lot of money, isn't it? 50 grand. But does that actually cover your treatment? I know there's some extortionate figures for cancer. Another thing, guys, if you're on the internet right now, if you've got your phone on your hand, I'll put it up on screen when I edit this, actually, what the actual average cost is to treat someone that's got lung cancer. You know, you think about the chemotherapy sessions, the doctor's wages, all this thing. I reckon 50 grand will be swallowed up quite quickly, and we could be looking at a hell of a lot more, but I'll try and research it and I'll put it up on screen. So I don't think necessarily smokers pay for their own treatment. But this argument is always a really grey area anyway, because when does it end? You know, you get the same arguments for people that are morbidly obese and eat incredibly unhealthy. Should they be contributing more to their NHS treatment? What if you're into extreme sports like BMXing and skateboarding and stuff? You're in and out an A&E all the time. Should you have to brunt the burden more for your NHS treatment? You know, the conversation never ends, does it? It never ends. But to summarise my position, yeah, I'm not for, and I'm coming from someone, I'm an ex-smoker. I'm someone that also, on the rare occasion, on a special occasion, may enjoy a cigarette in a beer garden sometimes, 3 or 4 times a year, you know. So that, you know, this would affect me. I'm not in favour of a blanket ban in public spaces. But I do also see a lot of good arguments on the other side. I do. It's a tough one for me. I'm on the fence. Yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts, guys. Please put them down below. Let me know some of those figures for cancer treatment as well, if you've Googled it, or tax on cigarettes. I'd love to know some of those. And yeah, till next time. If you enjoyed the video, click a like. Please like the video if you enjoyed it. It really does help me out. And yeah, you can subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Be another video, you can check that out as well. Till next time, take care. Fucking idiot.